Probably about 10 pitches in, I felt, a pretty significant pop in my elbow with a good amount of tingling down my ring finger and pinky finger on my throwing arm. And, I kind of thought at that point, something might not be right here.
Hey, I've never met you, you've never met me, and then starting tomorrow, let's start an 18-month deal together.
I think it is a real challenge to try to figure out how can I be a leader on this team without actually being able to step on the field.
It was a Sunday in Little Rock. We had just gotten walked off on twice earlier in the weekend, and I was looking forward to pitching because I hadn't yet in that weekend, and the situation came up. We were tied up in the 10th, and I got my name called, and I noticed my forearm. I did feel a little bit of abnormal tightness before I went in the game, but I tried to shake it off and finish out through the inning, and it ended up not working out in our favor. But yeah, I definitely, in that instance, I knew that there might be something wrong with my elbow. I didn't want to tell my coaches or my trainer that I felt like I was injured while I was pitching. I didn't want to think that I was making an excuse for having a bad outing. So I ended up, about 3 or 4 days later, after we got home, I told my trainer, I think there's something wrong with my arm. I wasn't able to put much behind the baseball while I was throwing, and at that point, my trainer at the time, assigned me to do a little bit of rehab, and once we kind of realized that something's not right here, we kind of went in and we did the MRI, and Dr. Ekman, I'll actually never forget it, came down to the dugout and said, "You've done some damage to your UCL, and we're probably going to need to do surgery to repair it."
So when we talk about Tommy John surgery, we're talking about a reconstruction of the ulnar collateral ligament. And that a lot of times happens when you're throwing a baseball or doing that throwing motion, putting that stress on the inside of your elbow, and that ligament will just get pulled too tight and it'll actually tear. And there's really not a great way to fix it if the ligament is torn in the middle. So they usually just go through and do a complete reconstruction. So they'll take a ligament or a tendon from another part of your body, and for Matt they use this palmaris longus tendon in his forearm, and they'll actually take that and put it into the elbow into like a figure-8 pattern and kind of reconstruct that ligament.
My first introduction to Tommy John rehab and the surgery was actually as a player. When I was a junior at UCSB, we had a freshman that was drafted out of high school that had the surgery, and I was the one that played catch with him as a part of his rehab process. And unfortunately for him, he never once stepped on the mound in 2 years, and it actually ended up ruining his baseball career. As a coach, I've been lucky enough to not have anybody not come out on the other side of it.
Obviously, it was just devastating news to me. This is the game that I love. I like to think that I played as hard as I can and play with a lot of passion. When I heard that I wouldn't be able to compete for a while, that was really hard for me to hear, let alone just being around my teammates and trying to help us, win baseball games. That was really hard. But after kind of doing a little research on the Tommy John surgery and how common and frequent it was happening in baseball these days, and how many big leaguers have come back from the surgery and be successful, it was just kind of a, these are the cards that I've been dealt, and I need to attack this with nothing but positivity now, or I'm never going to be able to come back and be close to where I was before.
So when you're first starting the rehab process, you're really just focusing on protecting that new graft that you just put in there and restoring range of motion, decreasing swelling, just kind of getting them back to a functional state. And then once you get through that part, then you're going to work on strengthening all those muscles in the forearm, in the elbow, and the shoulder, and preparing them to get back into actual throwing activities. So after we get through, basic rehab, usually around 4 or 5 months, we'll start to do the actual throwing part of it. So it starts with, literally the first week he's doing, tosses at 30 feet, just, we call it the rainbow throwing, just trying to get his arm moving, get his arm used to getting back into that motion. And then, once he's mastered that, then we start to progress into the actual throwing program. And that starts with 45 feet and just kind of going through the motions, just trying to work back into, getting used to throwing all of that and kind of progress him through, 2 sets of 25 at 45 feet, 3 sets of 25 at 45 feet, and then once he's mastered that, then he can progress to 60 feet, 90 feet, and so on, until he's able to, the last step of the throwing program is 180 feet, and he's thrown it, 75 times, and if his arm can handle that, then, we're pretty confident he can move on to the next stage of the rehab.
You have a lot of those days where you just don't feel good. It's a painful process, but there's X number of throws that need to be made at X distance with certain amounts of time in between, and making sure that not one throw is missed. And then when you do have those days where you feel great and you want to push yourself and you're a thrower and now you get to go throw again, holding them back. Hey, no, you're done. That's it. Do you feel good? Yes, I do. Okay, we're done. Certain things need to be done on certain days, when to push, when to hold back, and it always works out the wrong way. When they hurt is when you need to push, and when they feel really good is when you need to pull the reins a little bit. So you're kind of always on, as a person doing the protocols, you're kind of always on the wrong side of it with the athlete. You're always the bad guy.
I think some guys, have some trouble and kind of tentative, about throwing the baseball. I think what was kind of interesting about my process was I wasn't really afraid to just attack my throwing program. If a doctor or an experienced pitching coach tells you, to trust your arm, I'm going to listen to the people that know their stuff.
With the Tommy John guys in the past, kind of my little gimmick has always been the haunted house. At some point, you have to go through it and you have to know where everything is. I mean, the first time you go into the haunted house, it's really scary. You don't know where the spider is that's going to jump on your face, or you don't know when you're going to get your ankle grabbed. I mean, it's very spooky going in, but the more times you go through it, pretty soon you know where everything is. You can walk through at a steady pace. It's not scary anymore, and you can tell everyone that it's a joke. It's a bad haunted house. You can try and instill that or talk about it or push them to do it, but at some point, Matt was willing to take that leap of faith and say, all right, I'm going to throw a ball 100%.
One of the first practices we had, we pulled out the radar gun, and I was nervous because I didn't want him to go out there and overthrow, just to try to impress us. But we let him throw the radar gun. So we had a screen set up behind the catcher. So I was standing back there with one of the players that had the radar gun, and he did his little warm up. So we didn't have the gun up, and then we held the gun up for his first pitch. And it came in, you heard the pop in the glove, and that was such a cool moment to see. We had no idea. Like, I had asked him before, I said, what do you think you're gonna be throwing? He's like, I might not be throwing hard, I don't know. So it was just a really exciting moment to see that progress, and still have that much more time to improve before the season.
There's always that, question mark of whether or not you'll be, how you were before, or, if possibly you can come back better. I didn't have a radar gun on me all summer through my throwing program, so I really had no idea where I was at.
We started our first inter squad of the entire fall on scout day, and the first pitch was 95 down and away for a strike. So it was kind of one of those big seminal moments, like, hey, he's healthy, hey, he's willing to pitch at 100% intent. We got through the process, we're healthy. Now it's time to learn how to be a really good pitcher. I mean, it was a 3-0 game, and we put him in the 8th inning. So obviously that's a big stage. I mean, you have a save situation. He ended up locking up our first win of the season. I would be lying if I say we didn't know that it was a big situation, because the idea was he was going to finish that baseball game for us. And he hadn't pitched since the 2015 season. He had thrown multiple innings in the fall, but we did put him in the 8th. So, I mean, I guess that would be the only thing that there was even any level of hoping for good fortune about, but I don't think there was any fear whatsoever in putting Matt Brill into a 3-run game in the 8th inning.
Brill delivers the fastball. It smacks the mid of Bradley Davis.
Yeah, obviously, a good bit of nerves were flowing through me at the time, but I was just excited to compete. I was excited to face somebody other than my teammates. It was still just great to compete. It really was special, and my teammates and my coaches have just been, awesome about this whole thing. They're just so excited for me to be back, and I'm just excited to be back with the team and, have a bunch of coaches that really care about me. So, after that outing, I got a bunch of hugs, and Christina gave me a huge hug and wanted to take a picture, and it's little things like those that are just like, I'm just really blessed to have such amazing people around me.
Brill to look over to second base. Now he delivers home, swung on, and Matt Brill gets Appalachian the victory here in Game 1, 7-6 over Arkansas State.
I'm not sure I actually watched any of the game. By the time when he was sent to the bullpen, I'm not sure I actually have any clue what happened in our game. I was obviously very, very excited and just kept watching him warm up in the pen. And we saw him throwing hard and throwing. You could just see the excitement in his face. It had been a long time since he'd gotten to do that, and it was just really exciting to see that moment was finally here. And then of course we ended up, he got a save that night, and it was our first team win of the year. And so it was just, that whole, just all accumulating in that one night was just really, really special.
He had earned that position. If he hadn't, we wouldn't have put him out there. So for him to lock down our first win ahead in the 8th inning, ahead after 7, that was a spot that he had earned throughout the entire fall, throughout January. There's always that hope that everything goes well when someone hasn't thrown in 2 years, especially someone that, it's kind of hard to argue that he didn't perform at a higher level as a position player, so those really critical innings, but he earned that spot fair and square from the first day in the fall through January. That was his time to go.
And the guy that hit the home run here on the day, Connor Leonard. Brill's offering comes home, hits the outside part of the plate, and there's strike number 3.
Been a heck of a journey, I'll tell you what. A lot of ups and downs, a lot of changes, but it's been a great one, and I'm thankful for every bit of it because I've learned a lot from this journey, perseverance, handling adversity, discipline, hard work, these are all things that the mental side of baseball were all, parts of the game where I was able to hone those skills, I guess. But yeah, it was a long time between, competing against hitters on the mound. Definitely glad to say that I'm back and pitching.